Shalom, Truth Seekers. I wanted to try and put a quick summary video together for Truth Seekers' efforts around the world, collecting Sundial data to confirm this Solstice event that just happened. I've been having a little technical difficulty this evening. I have to do this all on my phone, and I guess I'm running out of storage on my phone, so I did this once, and it only recorded like the second half of my video because I was running out of room or something. So I had to delete a bunch of stuff, and actually this is now my third attempt because that happened a couple times. So there's a lot I want to say. It was so good, but I'm gonna have to speed through things. And if you have any questions, please just let me know in the comments below this video. But I've tried to post all the pictures to this Facebook group, and there'll be a link in the description below this video for a folder on Dropbox. You don't have to join Dropbox or anything, but it'll have all the pictures by date if you want to find something by date. So without further ado, let's jump into it and start with Clay in Oklahoma. And there's a reason for starting with him that I'll discuss later, but he had excellent data this year. Used a cell phone tower to try and exaggerate the movements of the shadow. If you've used a small sundial board, you know that the shifting of your shadow pattern from one day to the next is extremely small and hard to differentiate. So with a tall tower, that exaggerates that movement. And it's for the solstice event, the sun is progressing north until it hits an extreme north position, and your shadow pattern is progressing south until it hits an extreme south position. They're kind of opposite. But as you get close to the solstice event, that distance between your data set points from one day to the next will get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Also, in the early morning and late evening, there's a little more of a gap, but right around solar noon, it's going to be even tighter for some reason. That's the way it seems to be. But anyway, so he used a tall cell phone tower to collect his data, and he used a solar lens filter of some sort. So that dot in the middle is the sun, and he lined up a point that he picked on this top of the tower to pretty much be a bullseye on that sun. And then he used this device that he calls Solstice stick to kind of reach back over his shoulder and mark a spot on the ground. So you see he put a pin in the ground the first day he did it on the 17th. Next day he did it was on the 18th. And then he did it on the 17th. It's just amazing. He had sunlight for like 5 or 6 days when he did this, but he bent that one pin to make room for the next one, I guess. And we're progressing to the right with each day, so there he bent another pin and put it in the ground. And that pin all the way to the right was from the 21st. And then this pin in the foreground is the 22nd, and he believed it was returning at this point. So that pin you see all the way to the right was from the 21st, and that's important. So for his location on Earth, he thought he saw the shadow hit its extreme position on the 21st. We'll compare that with Wendy's data in South Africa later in this video, but keep that in mind. Clay in Oklahoma, he believed he saw the extreme position on the 21st. Thank you for collecting all this data. I know it wasn't easy, and you are to be commended for your efforts. So I just wanted to include this just as an example of, if you were to collect all day, this is I don't know if this is from a member of the Covenant Calendar group. I don't know if they were necessarily trying to confirm the solstice, but they're pretty close to it, and this is what you would expect to see on a solstice, just a beautiful curve. So I just wanted to include that. From Kansas, here's another data set, same thing. I don't know if they meant to do it for the solstice, but they they had the first day and the second day, first day in green, second day in blue or red, and looks like the 20th and the 21st. So this is just an example, and I think this might have been their first time doing this, so good job with your first attempt here. Forgive me for using your data as a discussion to talk about some technical things here for the solstice event, but this is a great example of how tight things can be. So for a solstice event, you're looking for this entire curve pattern to shift, and it's going to shift like north and south, and these red points, you can see there's a red point there and a green point there, they pretty much look right on top of each other, and on a small board it's really hard to see that shifting from one day to the next. And it looks like this little kink in the data points up here, well, I don't know if maybe there's a kink because they connected red and green. I don't know. That's an interesting. Okay, yeah, you gotta watch out for kinks like that because it should be a nice smooth curve. But anyway, the point is things get really tight. It's hard to do with this is good practice for sure for like just in general and maybe for an equinox event, but for a solstice event, it's really tough to see the difference between one day to the next with a small setup like this. This is Danon in California, and again, I don't know if he was collecting specifically for the solstice, but he did have data right around. So he was learning with his setup. The nail was blunt, and the shadow was actually not it was not the tip of his shadow, but it was kind of the hump of the tip of that nail. So he had to file that baby down, and I think he did collect a little more data on the 22nd. Can't really compare anything for the solstice event, but I wanted to include him because he did capture data for these days, but he's an important honorable mention in general just because he's been trying so diligently to work with his sundial, and he can testify to you of what I am trying to explain about how tight these data points are from one day to the next. If you're trying to pinpoint the day if it's important for you to pinpoint the day when the sun hits an extreme position, it's extremely hard to do it with a setup like this. And I recommend either the tall tower in the morning or the evening. As you can see from Clay's data, it can even get tight because he collected around solar noon. It can even get tight around solar noon, but if you do early morning or late evening, I had success with that. I've used tall sundial towers like that in the morning, and like I saw like a foot of difference around the solstice event, so that does work. It can be much clearer. The other method we'll talk about in a moment for South Africa, early morning points on the small setup is really, really cool. Covenant Calendar Group, Malaysia, interesting location. I don't know if they meant to collect for the solstice specifically, but they did. And so if anyone has questions about their data, they did collect. If you want to get in touch with them about their data, we can probably figure out how to make that happen. But just wanted to mention them. This is our sister from South Africa, Wendy, and she collected from the 16th to the 23rd. Thank you, sister, for your diligence. And this was so unique. It was, and I'm gonna try this, and I recommend everyone to try this because I think the best thing you can do is find for a solstice event is find a tall cell phone tower and do it in the morning or the evening, and there'll be no question you'll see huge gaps from one day to the next. But this method that Wendy used in South Africa took advantage of the fact that the sun swings and hooks a lot in the morning and the evening. Like the gap from day to day is more pronounced in the morning and the evening. And so even though it's a small setup, she was able to differentiate this shifting because she wasn't looking at solar noon. She was looking in the morning, and so this is a wall in her house too. We're not looking at a horizontal board. This is a wall in her house, and she put a flower pot about 5 foot away from this wall and a broomstick, and the vertical line of the broomstick is casting the shadow on the wall. And it's really simplistic and but wonderful and highly effective, I think. The only thing I would suggest in the future, and I think she's going to do, is next time, don't just get a vertical line, also get a horizontal line. So you can see like this little corner at the top of this data, she has a time where she collected all these 7:40 a.m. exactly at 7:40 a.m. I would just, you can see a little corner of a shadow under there. She had like a rectangular plate on top of the broom. I wish I could have showed a picture of it, but I would grab a horizontal line off of that just to have two lines defining that moment in time. But anyway, to discuss her data, you can see it was 16th to 17th was wide, 17th to 18 smaller. You go down, you can see the 19th was right above the 19. We'll jump to the 21st. It was right above the 20, the 2. 22nd is just above that 2 to the left of the 22nd. And then 23 is this long line. And you can see that the 23 is between the lines for the 21st and the 22nd. So she thought at her location she was seeing the extreme position reached on the 22nd. So now think back to what Clay got in Oklahoma. He thought he was seeing it on the 21st. But remember, when the sun crosses over the international date line in the Pacific Ocean, the Gregorian date changes. So it appears South Africa was seeing it on the 22nd, and Montana was seeing it, or not, Oklahoma was seeing it on the 21st. But that is still within the same 24-hour period, just different dates because of the man-made international date line. So just wanted to, we'll talk more about that later. But thank you, sister, for your hard work. This was excellent, and I'm going to try this myself, and I recommend other people try it as well. And I am sorry, I think the video, I'm going to try and splice two videos together, have a part 1 and part 2, because it broke right around here. But, yeah, this is just another Covenant Calendar member who was collecting around the summer solstice, and I believe they grabbed the timeanddate.com date that was proclaiming this event. And so they're in Wales, so I guess they're north of South Africa. So it's just interesting to mention that, watch out for what timeanddate.com says. Reality might be a little different, but I don't, I think they were just practicing here. So good job with your practice. This looks excellent for getting ready for an equinox event. If we were actually trying to get a solstice event confirmation, we'd need to see the days straddling this data to double check that there was like an extreme position being reached. So again, sorry for the jump in the video, but I'm gonna have to break this and check out part 2. It'll be the same name, part 2.